everyone, and welcome back to Wake and Take. It's your boy Jason, and we've got some football to talk about today. Today's Tuesday, so we talk a little bit of waiver wire here. Today, we're going to try something new. Today, we're going to try a rapid-fire waiver wire show, as we've had to delay the start and then also finish before the Fantasy Empire goes live. Go check out the Waiver Wire show by Theo Greminger, of course, for some more waiver wire updates. But I've got 39 players for you today that we're going to be discussing in about 30 to 40 minutes. So go ahead and take out your coffee, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. All right, everyone, welcome in, welcome in. Glad to see you all in the chat this morning. Our fearless producer, Dustin, Lucas. I saw a bunch of other people in the chat. For some reason now, when I press go live, all of the chat from before I press live disappears. So I don't know what happens there. We'll have to figure that out. But good morning to you, Best Ball on Call, and everyone listening on the podcast. Good morning to you as well. Let's get right on into this thing. We have kind of been updating what it means to be a waiver wire ad here on the Wake and Take Waiver Wire show. We've gone from like 50% available week one to like 60 to 70. Now I think we're settling in at 75. It's been 75% or more available the last few weeks, and we just kind of go right down the list from the least available to the most available player that should help your fantasy football teams. Today I've got, I believe, 31 skill players, and then I have a bunch of quarterbacks and tight ends to kind of just breeze through as well. And yes, I know that Robert Saleh got fired, but do we really care? I mean, yes, obviously it's exciting. I see a lot of people talking about that breaking news, but it's just like the Jets are still going to suck. What is Nathaniel Hackett going to be the interim? Like, they're still going to suck. Obviously, great move, but I'm waiting to kind of see some more information. We do like coaches here on this show, but we want to know who the coaches is before we get too far out over our skis. I don't think that this is going to be just a total rejuvenation in New York, I guess is what I'm just trying to say. But rest in peace to Robert Saleh and probably whatever coaching members go with him. Hopefully that means good things for the Jets, but I don't know if it will, to be honest. We'll see, though. We will see. But for the waiver wire, we are more so worried about players available in 75% or more of leagues. And for the most part, running backs and wide receivers, tight end, just such a hellscape. Quarterback, you kind of know what you're doing, and it depends on Superflex from single QB. But here we go. We'll start with the most important thing of any waiver wire week at this point in the season is the bye week. So right now, week 6, the Chiefs, Rams, Dolphins, and Vikings are on bye. So this isn't anything you're going to be able to do like now, but tomorrow after your waivers process, go ahead and keep an eye on just who was dropped from the Chiefs, Rams, Dolphins, and Vikings. There might be someone good. I mean, someone in your more shallow leagues might drop an Aaron Jones because they're worried about the injury. You know, Jalen Wright may not even get added as they're on bye. And you know, maybe people are thinking that Devon Achane will be fine with his concussion on their return. So just no one even bids on Jalen Wright. On the Rams, Blake Corum may be a sneaky one that you could get that doesn't really get picked up this week despite finally getting some snaps. And then on the Chiefs, like a Clyde Edwards-Helaire or even a Kareem Hunt might get dropped. Or something like that. Just any Chief, really. A Juju Smith-Schuster you might not have to bid up for as much anymore because of this bye week. Those are the teams to kind of watch out for. Chiefs, Rams, Dolphins, Vikings. Just look to see who either A, isn't added or gets dropped as a result of their bye week, just because injuries and everything, it's hard to kind of keep some of these players on a week-to-week basis, especially in our shallower leagues. But the first player that we're going to talk about today is Tyrone Tracy. Tyrone Tracy just had 129 rush yards off of 18 carries against a decently stingy Seattle defense. And this is a player we've been touting adding for a while now. For the most part, this show is just which running back should I stash? But Tyrone Tracy, this is one that we've been talking about. And had the injury fall his way with this groin injury for Devin Singletary, gets out there and gets to have 129 rush yards, no touchdowns or anything like that. And so I'm going to see a lot of people kind of talk about, well, Tyrone Tracy, do I really want to add him? Devin Singletary is probably going to be back at some point. Yeah, sure. But it's looking like it might at least be one more week. I mean, this is a groin injury, so you usually miss 1 to 2 weeks, maybe even 3, depending on the severity. But also, we've talked about it before. Tyrone Tracy, wide receiver turned running back, really good size speed combo, good athlete. now that he's had his opportunity and looked good in his opportunity, I would not be surprised if Tyrone Tracy has just earned himself a role, a 1B type option in this offense, not only as a pass catcher, but grinded it out as well, because, I mean, he only had one reception in this game, despite being a former wide receiver, but had 18 carries for 129 yards, average 7 yards a carry. Really, really good performance by him. I think that if he can keep it going, especially if Devin Singletary misses another week, we're talking about a guy that at least gets 35 to 40% of opportunities in this offense. Because say what you want about Devin Singletary, he's a really good running back. For the most part, he's just been like a 1A option, except for kind of towards the end of the year in Houston last year, but there was no one else. For the most part, he always shares the backfield with at least someone, looking like he'll kind of be splitting the load with Tyrone Tracy when he does return, because Tracy just looks so good. So if he's out there, I would recommend getting Tyrone Tracy and not really worrying about, Devin Singletary might come back. If anything, that just helps you be able to get him a little bit cheaper on your fab bid. So Tyrone Tracy, you need to get added. And Jaleel McLaughlin, if he's still available in your league too. I know that normally I talk about how we're avoiding the Broncos backfield, but that was before all the injuries piled up. Now it clearly is Jaleel McLaughlin and Javonte Williams. And Javonte Williams had the bigger game this week, but there's going to be games where Jaleel McLaughlin is the one. And even then, he's still going to get these receptions, right? So in this game, 6 carries, 3 receptions off of 4 targets, but did get the receiving touchdown. And that's what we can look for, about 10 touches every single week, a few of them going to be receptions. And with his explosiveness, should be able to, be decent for our fantasy teams going forward, at least in the flex spot. And then if something does happen to Javonte Williams, then you could, throw Jaleel McLaughlin even more comfortably into your lineups. But either way, he definitely needs to be rostered at this point, and especially in some of these more shootout type games, then should be pretty solid, right? So Jaleel McLaughlin, I am looking to add this week. I'm officially looking at getting my first Broncos running back on my team. Shout out Mark, by the way. Shout out Mark. I agree. I can't ever say no, but I hate going live late. Just not the same. Moving on. Another running back. We have Roschon Johnson. If you listened to the Waiver Wire before coming over here, Theo did do a really good breakdown on this. You don't want to pay up for Roschon, and you might have to because of the touchdowns, but this is still a backup running back on a team. You're still probably hopeful for a DeAndre Swift injury or something like that to happen for him to actually be startable on a week-to-week basis, but he's getting these goal line carries, and that's just what DeAndre Swift backups get, right? Or last year's case, Jalen Hurts, but DeAndre Swift falls on the one all the time. And yes, he did get 1 goal line rushing touchdown this week, but for the most part, that's going to be Roschon Johnson. We've seen 3 touchdowns over the last 2 weeks. If anything happens to DeAndre Swift as well, Roschon Johnson does have an all-purpose skill set. He is more than just a between the tackles grinder. He can catch the ball. He had 4 or 5 targets, brought in 4 or 5 targets in, was that week 2? Week 3 maybe against the Colts, because he missed at least the first couple of weeks. But yeah, against the Colts, he had 4 receptions for 32 yards. He can do that. So definitely someone you need to kind of be rostering right now is Roschon Johnson. And we'll go down to our first wide receiver, and that is Alec Pierce. This is another one where I'm not recommending you bid up, but he still needs to be rostered. And it sucks because you never really know when to start Alec Pierce, but he can at least be a bye week fill-in. And yeah, he's come back to earth a little bit, but this week he really showed some signs of life at the end of the game particularly. And if Joe Flacco is going to be out there slinging it like that, then Alec Pierce almost becomes a start. However, I will say there's another Colts wide receiver that I'm officially prioritizing over Alec Pierce. I know that right now Alec Pierce is getting those chunk plays, getting those touchdowns like he did in the first couple weeks of the season, but he still only had 3 targets in this game. And yes, he brings in all 3 of those targets for 134 yards and a touchdown. It was miraculous, but still, he is going to be very boomer bust throughout the year. And that's not really generally someone I recommend holding on your roster, but just because of the nature of this Colts offense, I think it's worth it. They do clearly take these deep shots with or without Anthony Richardson. And so Alec Pierce is going to have games. And having a boomer bust option in your flex on bye weeks, yeah, it could burn you, but it could also help you win your week too. It's just kind of up to you as a manager. If you don't like these boomer bust players, sure, leave them on the wire. But I don't think he should be sitting there at this point, especially now doing it again with Flacco. But teasing it, I will go ahead and say I do prioritize Adonai Mitchell over Alec Pierce going forward. Adonai Mitchell is actually getting the targets, Maybe not the production yet, but it's slowly but surely building up to that. So I'm prioritizing Adonai Mitchell, but Alec Pierce is someone I want to roster as well. Next, we have Josh Palmer. And again, this is just going in order of availability, so not necessarily priority. Maybe at the end, I could give a little bit more of a prioritized breakdown. But Joshua Palmer is someone I want to add as well. He hasn't gotten really any volume, really, at all. 4 targets, 2 targets, 4 targets in his 3 games so far this season. So we're classifying this as a meh add. But, you know, we're still talking about a receiver that has a decent connection with Justin Herbert. And you guys know I just still believe in Justin Herbert. And Quentin Johnston, Ladd McConkey, they're kind of getting theirs. We'll talk about DJ Chark a little bit later in the show, who's an awesome pickup for deep leagues. But Joshua Palmer is just one of those average receivers. And if anything does happen to McConkey or Quentin Johnston, knock on wood, we hope it doesn't, but those players have been injury prone in the past, then Joshua Palmer is going to be right back to that player that is an every week flex play, even if there's not a ton of pass volume in Los Angeles. This is not a player I recommend throwing any fat at, maybe just $1. But I do recommend throwing $1 his way and just seeing if you could land him. Make it the rest of your league, at least put a bid in on him. Not too trying to get him. Again, classified as a meh ad, but I see he's heavily available. And I just say to myself, I mean, why not? He's been very productive in the past, has a good connection with Justin Herbert, and things could still fall his way to where he becomes usable. Before we move on, I would like to play a little bit of an ad break here before we get to our next bit of ads. We're hitting a little over 10 minutes into the show. So let's just go ahead and hear a little bit about just Player Profiler in general, why you need to be on that site.
Hey, I want to take a moment to thank you for tuning in. It's important to me that all of our media be free, and one of our key missions is to make as much statistics and information and deep analysis available on PlayerProfiler.com for free. This is only possible because of you allowing a true independent sports media enterprise to thrive unlike any other in the business. So please subscribe to the All In package to continue to make all this possible. If you can't do All In, that's okay. We have a draft kit. Or you can just subscribe to the player rankings. Those now include Tight End Premium FFPC ranks, our brand new data analysis package. Will blow your hair back. And of course, there's our Dynasty Deluxe and our DFS Dominator. Take a moment, check out our premium services to ensure that all of our stats, information, data, content is available to you, especially you, the people that get the site and get the show.
Definitely go check out Player Profiler. If you guys are on there, you already know. I mean, you're on our YouTube channel, but it's just such a great site. And for those of you that stumble across this video that maybe aren't familiar with Player Profiler, you definitely need to be on there. That's how you stay ahead of the game. Now, our next ad, we've been saying it. You know, everyone's been giving up on Blake Corum, but we have consistently kept him in this show sheet. You've got to just roster Blake Corum. Yes, Ronnie Rivers was getting snaps, but this is just like, we talked about it all offseason. There was a lot of Blake Corum hype, and I even said myself, I'm a Michigan fan. I'm not paying this price for Blake Corum. I can and won't do it. And I did it. As a Michigan fan, I just couldn't do it. I still believe firmly that Kyren Williams was a good running back, and it's going to take an injury for something to happen with Blake Corum. Now, did I expect him to cede carries to Ronnie Rivers early in the season? No, but I did expect some patience, right? This is a rookie running back on a team with Sean McVay that historically doesn't necessarily like his rookie running backs. He likes the guys he trusts. So he's earning that trust, though. Blake Corum is going to continue to earn that trust, and has, I think, officially kind of retaken that RB2 role over Ronnie Rivers. We'll see if it continues to trend that way. But after not getting any touches over the last couple of weeks, he gets back this game, 5 carries for 25 yards, brings in a reception as well. And this was a fairly competitive game. In fact, a really competitive game. And he was in there getting some usage. Not a ton, but just something to note. If Blake Corum is still out there, you need to get him. The bonus here is that the Rams are on bye this week, so they might adjust the game plan, but you also don't have to bid up too much for Blake Corum. In fact, he might even get dropped, and he shouldn't be. He needs to be rostered. Kyren Williams is injury prone, and Blake Corum is good. He is good. It's just going to take some time for him to earn the trust of the coaching staff, and something has to fall his way for him to get some more snaps, but definitely still worth rostering. Also, still worth rostering and adding. In fact, I would bid up for this player if he's still out there. It's Jordan Whittington. We've been saying it all season that this is the Rams receiver that you want. We'll keep reminding everyone of that, I feel like we're pretty good at finding which one we actually want on a team, right? And Jordan Whittington was the Rams wide receiver I was heavily targeting, not the Tyler Johnsons of the world or the Tutu Atwells or the Marcus Robinsons, who I'm sure we're fine. But the one with the actual upside was Whittington, and he's proven why. Just had 10 targets, brings in 7 of them for 89 yards. Now, he has this shoulder injury that he was seen leaving the field in a sling with, but Sean McVay has already come out and says that they do not expect him to miss any time. It was a bit of precaution. And then, of course, with this being the bye week, that's an extra week of rest for him. He should be good to go upon return and go back to getting these 8+ target games, which is just incredible. So if Jordan Whittington is out there, get him. You don't even have to bid up too much for him. But I would say, like, if you're thinking of doing 5 or 10%, do 6 or 11. Like, do definitely go the extra just tiny bit to get him. And if he's dropped, be one of those first people to go ahead and scoop him up. And I see here that Dustin is reminding me on our little private communications that our private communications with the fearless producer, Dustin, who's crushing it every single day on this show for me. It's just reminding that Cooper Kupp is returning. And I do want to say that is true, but that might even help a Jordan Whittington who isn't, who is just more of a sneaky guy. Like, he's just kind of getting those targets and kind of schemed open and stuff like that. With Cooper Kupp taking a lot of coverage away, I think it could actually help him a decent bit and just improve the offense as a whole. Thank you, Dustin. That's awesome. Yes. So Jordan Whittington, got to get him. Now, our next player to add is Emmanuel Wilson, and we'll also just go ahead and throw Marshawn Lloyd in there. You've got to get these Packers running backs. Josh Jacobs is getting a ton of carries, and really, Emmanuel Wilson's getting worked in with Josh Jacobs there. We saw Marshawn Lloyd getting worked in with Josh Jacobs there as well before his injury. Emmanuel Wilson, Marshawn Lloyd, it would be a duo. It would be both of them back there if anything happened to Josh Jacobs. So I just want both added. No, it's not going to just be Emmanuel Wilson if Josh Jacobs went down. It's not going to just be Marshawn Lloyd. It would be both of these running backs getting some opportunity, as Marshawn Lloyd's more of a pass catcher. Emmanuel Wilson's more of a grinder. It should be good. So Emmanuel Wilson, definitely someone to get on your team. In fact, I've been starting him in my deeper leagues the past couple weeks, even with Josh Jacobs still there. Really nice handcuff to roster in Green Bay. Historically, they've used a bit of a backfield split, and they're already kind of doing that even with Josh Jacobs healthy. If anything happens, then you're going to want Emmanuel Wilson and Marshawn Lloyd for sure. I would still say prioritize Marshawn Lloyd since he's the one with juice, has the explosiveness, only needs to miss one more week before he can return. So Marshawn Lloyd's my priority, but Emmanuel Wilson, rostered to more leagues, so we're going towards the more available. But Emmanuel Wilson, Marshawn Lloyd, get him. Next is another wide receiver, and I'm not going to lie. We say it a lot. I'm a little off about adding some wide receivers just because it's hard to start these guys, especially the fringier ones like a Michael Wilson, but they definitely still need to be rostered. Michael Wilson, 9 targets, 7 targets, 6 targets over the last 3 weeks, and looking decent with them. 64 yards, 38 yards, 78 yards, just fine. Just fine. But he's out there running a ton of routes, is the wide receiver 2 on the outside here for Arizona, and they're looking his way a decent amount. He had that touchdown week 1, so touchdowns are a part of his game as well. This is a player that needs to be rostered. It's tough to know when to start him, but still needs to be on your bench if anything happens to McBride again, or, God, I hope not Marvin Harrison Jr., but still, then you'll definitely know when to start him. Michael Wilson needs to be rostered. Don't throw too much fab his way, but needs to be rostered. Now we're getting to Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who his practice window was opened last week, was able to return to a little bit of practice, but they still marked him as doubtful, did not activate him for Monday Night Football. Look for him to be activated after they get off their bye week. This would not surprise me if Clyde Edwards-Helaire takes the starting running back job over Kareem Hunt. He's been on the team for a while. They spent that draft capital on him. He was decent enough last year in the limited opportunities he had. I know he's not the greatest, and he's definitely never going to live up to his draft hype, but still definitely has the skill set. And I mean, at this point in his career, has more juice and tread left on the tire than Kareem Hunt, who has looked good, will probably end up being a bit of a split. But I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire will get opportunity in this offense, needs to be rostered. Get CEH. I know we don't feel great about it, but you have to do it. Next, we have Adonai Mitchell sitting here as the Colts wide receiver, and I mentioned that I prioritize him over Alec Pierce, It's because he's actually getting targets. Alec Pierce only 3 targets in last week's game. Yes, had 130 yards and a touchdown. But Adonai Mitchell had 7 targets. 7 targets brings him 4 of them for 38 yards. Not a great game, but he has the skill set to also be a deep shot and will continue to get this usage. He's getting targeted. The Colts are trying to get him the ball. They spent that second-round draft pick on him. He's someone I want to roster for sure because I wouldn't be surprised if by the end of the season, he really is consistently getting 5+ targets a game and actually getting some production with it as well. So Adonai Mitchell, I want to add and get on my team stashed before it's too late. Getting the utilization, the big game is on the way. Next, and probably the biggest ad of the week, if not at least one of them, it's Jalen Tolbert. We've kept him on our list for a while now too. Unfortunately, to our Ryan Flournoy chagrin, but still, Jalen Tolbert. He is the wide receiver 2 in Dallas now with the Brandon Cooks injury. And at this point, he's going to be the wide receiver 2 when Brandon Cooks returns. Gets 7 of 10 targets in this game for 87 yards and a touchdown. In fact, it's a game winner as well. This is a player that we've kind of been waiting for a while at Player Profiler. I gave up a bit too early, it seems. We're now entering the kind of late breakout for him, but he's doing it. He's had the athleticism, now getting the opportunity, and he's seizing it. You got to be honest with it. He is seizing this opportunity. He now has 2 games over with 9 or more targets and 80 yards, has 2 touchdowns on the season, being really decent. With Brandon Cooks out for the next 4 weeks, he's going to continue to earn some opportunities and help himself just move up the pecking order in terms of the pass game. We could see Jalen Tolbert even pass kind of Jake Ferguson in terms of priority as well if he continues to play this well and earn Dak Prescott's trust. There was this quote this offseason that Dak Prescott said that he expects big things from Jalen Tolbert so far this season. So we're seeing it. Slowly but surely, we're seeing it. And this was a big coming out game for him. Again, 10 targets, 7 receptions, 87 yards and a touchdown. Awesome stuff from Tolbert. Get him on your team if he's out there. Bid up for him as well. I would say at least 10% on this wide receiver. He's going to be a really good complement to good old CeeDee Lamb and Jake Ferguson. Going to get this volume as the Cowboys pass a lot. Jalen Tolbert, a priority ad this week. Next is Jalen Wright. And I'll be honest here. I don't think that I'm starting to feel like we're not really going to see this kind of Jalen Wright starting type scenario that I was kind of hoping for. The whole case for Jalen Wright all year was that, if Devon Achane and Raheem Mostert went down, he would get some opportunity. And that he has. And this week, Raheem Mostert returned, but Devon Achane picked up a concussion, so he was able to get 13 carries for 86 yards. Looked incredible. But with the Dolphins being on bye, Devon Achane is going to have an extra week to heal from his concussion, which means that we're probably not going to see Jalen Wright as the starter, at least not for a few more weeks. And hopefully, I don't want to see it. I like Devon Achane. I like Raheem Mostert. But that's just the name of the game. And Jalen Wright will look awesome if he ever does get that opportunity. So I just want to keep stashing him. He's going to get dropped in a lot of leagues this week. Well, actually, maybe not because of the concussion. But if he is, you want to add him. And I might even just say, don't bid too much. I might honestly be okay with someone else snagging him this week. As I'm saying, I feel like Achane will be able to be fine through his concussion. And we won't actually see Jalen Wright starting when they come back from the bye. But he is going to get opportunity, is pretty good. We like Jalen Wright a lot, want to roster him, want to get him stashed. But don't think of him as someone you're going to be able to flex anytime soon. It's still going to take some injuries. This one isn't the injury that makes Jalen Wright happen. Next, we have Ray Davis. Ray Davis is getting less and less opportunity. I'll admit it. But still, this is a player that I want to stash in case James Cook gets hurt. He will not only be getting a ton of carries, but he'll also be the pass catcher in this offense. Has 2 targets this week, no carries. But over the course of the season has seen, at least 7 touches for the most part. In 3 out of 5 weeks, at least 7 touches. So I think that this week against Houston just wasn't utilized a ton, but it might bounce back that way. And if anything happens to James Cook, I think he would jump. He would leapfrog Ty Johnson a little bit. I think Ty Johnson's just kind of there right now. But Ray Davis is the one that they actually want to give these looks if anything were to happen. So I just want to make sure I'm stashing him. He's on that Buffalo offense, has a lot of the intangibles, really good pass-catching running back, as well as a really good between-the-tackles grinder, as evidenced by his stats at the SEC level. Ray Davis is someone we need on our squad. Next, I'll lump a few together here. I'll just go ahead and lump a few together here. Dustin, sorry for the time stamping here. But we're just going to go ahead and say Patriots. Patriots. We're just going to say Patriots here. If you can get Jalen Polk, you need to get him. If you can get Demario Douglas, you need to get him. If you can get Antonio Gibson, get him. If you can get Hunter Henry, if you can get, honestly, Javon Baker maybe in your deeper leagues, Tyquan Thornton in your deeper leagues, but mostly Drake May, because Drake May is going to be starting soon. Maybe this week, probably not this week because they've got a tough defense, but get the Patriots on your team while you still can. I think that Drake May will be the tide that rises all boats. He's going to help out a ton, especially these pass catchers. He's just got a good arm, right? That's why I'm even saying Tyquan Thornton, is we can maybe see the deep shots kind of opened up in this offense. So get your Patriots. Jalen Polk and Demario Douglas, especially in the wide receiver room, both of them are getting 5 or plus targets a game, but some deeper ones, Javon Baker, Tyquan Thornton, Antonio Gibson. Get your Patriots before Drake May starts, and especially get Drake May before Drake May starts. Trade for him, add him, whatever. Get those Pats before it's too late. Next, we'll move on to Keaton Mitchell. Keaton Mitchell is still on PUP, and it's looking like he's going to be on PUP for at least a few more weeks, so we can maybe wait a little bit longer on Keaton Mitchell. But if you've got an IR spot and he's out there, you could throw him in there. This is a player that I think will kind of fit into this offense in a decent way. He had some good production last year. He's got that, 4.3 speed, super shifty guy. Coming back from injury, so might lose some of that explosiveness, but still worth rostering-ish. We're not throwing any fab at Keaton Mitchell, but just kind of be on the lookout. He is expected to return sooner rather than later. Next, I think it's just time we officially just add Ray McLeod, and we'll know when to start him. We will. It'll be these shootout divisional type games. Back-to-back weeks with 6 receptions. The slot receiver here in Atlanta, they are looking his way often, and he's looking okay with it. In PPR leagues, you can start Ray McLeod in your flex in dire situations. So I think he needs to be rostered. Get Ray McLeod on your team. They just keep looking his way. They do. Next, we'll roll with Kendre Miller. We've been talking about him a lot. He's one of my priority ads. If he's still out there, I highly recommend stashing him. I love Kendre Miller. I do. This is going to be another situation similar to Tank Bigsby, I think, where everyone gave up on him because he didn't really have too much production in year one, and then gets the weird whole Dennis Allen head coach quote, but he made the roster, okay? He made the roster. He's on the team. He's recovering from injury. When he returns, he will be the handcuff to own, I believe. I don't think it's going to be Jamal Williams. I think that Kendre Miller will be the one. That you wish you had in New Orleans. Alvin Kamara is getting up there in age, and they're utilizing him so much. It's just the way the game goes. If you can get Kendre Miller, if he's out there, you need to prioritize him over a lot of the stashes I've mentioned so far this episode. He's the one I'm eyeing a ton right now. We're seeing the utilization that the running back gets in this offense. I think that a lot of people have kind of given up on Kendre Miller because of the offseason kind of opposite of hype. Get him on your team. I think he returns this week, actually. He practiced last week. He returned to practice last week. So get him if you can. Now, Juju Smith-Schuster is next, and this is another one that you could add even in your shallower leagues. He looks like the Rashee Rice replacement. They're having him run. He's the slant boy, and he looked good. He looked good last night. 7 receptions, 130 yards. No touchdowns or anything like that, but basically a Rashee Rice stat line. And if he's going to get that utilization week in, week out attached to Patrick Mahomes, he's got to be an every week starter. So Juju Smith-Schuster, huge Monday Night Football. I don't want to overreact too much to it, but I kind of think we have to. I think we have to, right? You've got to get him on your team and probably start him. Probably start Juju Smith-Schuster. I feel crazy saying it, but he looked good last night. He looked good last night and is getting the utilization, just the slant boy usage that Rashee Rice was getting. He's going to, have 6+ receptions a game, 80+ yards a game with a touchdown here or there. So get Juju Smith-Schuster on your squad, even in shallower leagues. I think he's startable. All right, now we can skip a few as I lumped a few together to shorten the show sheet a little bit. We'll now jump down all the way to Luke McCaffrey. This is another, we'll classify it more as a stash, but in your deeper leagues too, he's going to be startable. I'm going to go ahead and say it now. You're going to get starts out of Luke McCaffrey towards the end of the season this year. Maybe not a Mon-Ra St. Brown type breakout at the end of the year, but the utilization is there for Luke McCaffrey. And the targets are kind of there as well. He has 3 games now so far this season with 3 receptions off of 3 targets, has a 100% catch rate so far this year. And we talked about it before. He's building a great relationship with Jayden Daniels. Both of them being rookies together, coming into this league together. They were at OTAs together. They were showing up at training camp hours early for extra reps and film study. These guys' connection is going to continue to blossom throughout the year. And I do firmly believe you're going to get starts out of Luke McCaffrey by the end of the year as well. So if you have a Jayden Daniels, you need to get Luke McCaffrey. And we could even classify him maybe as like a handcuff almost behind like a Zach Ertz or a Terry McLaurin. If you just have really any commanders, I think that Luke McCaffrey is a nice piece to have. I think he's going to break out by the second half of the season and be a really good piece for our fantasy teams. Next, we just got to keep pounding the table for Kamani Vidal. Kamani Vidal, we will keep stashing. We will just keep on stashing. It's only a matter of time before we see Kamani Vidal on the football field. And when we do, it's going to be over. He's an awesome, awesome, awesome running back. He has led all running backs in rush yards last year at the college football level, has the incredible size-speed combo as well. Gus Bus looks terrible so far this year. J.K. Dobbins, I know you guys hate it, but that's why we weren't adding him too much in our leagues. After week 1, we definitely did not recommend trading for him. We talked about selling J.K. Dobbins. We're seeing some of the efficiency drop for J.K. Dobbins as well. Both of these guys, we've talked about it all offseason. Everyone was in on Kamani Vidal for a reason. And we're just so short-sighted as a fantasy football community that we don't remember the whole play for Kamani Vidal was the second half of the season when Gus Bus or J.K. Dobbins runs out of gas. It's trending that way now. Kamani Vidal is going to end up a league winner. Going ahead and calling it. Stash him on your roster. I have him in any league he's available. I have him. He's not available in any league I'm in. Big stash. I love Kamani Vidal. Get him on your team before it's too late. Next is Jalen McMillan, who was dropped in a lot of leagues. Jalen McMillan has been dropped in a lot of leagues, and should it be? Because what's happening? In the games that he's been out, Trey Palmer has scored a touchdown. Sterling Shepard scored a touchdown. The wide receiver 3 in Tampa is important, and he's been kind of battling through an injury, but he needs to be rostered. He shouldn't have been dropped even. We saw the touchdown week 1, and it's kind of been slow. He hasn't been startable, but I think that we could see it trend that way as defenses start to figure out Tampa a bit. They're going to want this third wide receiver to step up, and Baker Mayfield's been looking that way, looking Sterling Shepard's way, looking Trey Palmer's way, looking Jalen McMillan's way. And then another scenario, of course, is if anything happens to Chris Godwin or Mike Evans, he will get a little bit of a boost as well. So get Trey Palmer if you can. Or not Trey Palmer. Get Jalen McMillan. You could probably also get Jalen McMillan or Trey Palmer as well. Sorry, my sister called me. I have to text real quick. Always emergencies in the middle of these shows. Okay. Cool. So, yeah, Jalen McMillan, Tampa Bay. They're using the wide receiver 3. He's talented. Get it. Next, Isaac Correndo. Still the handcuff to own in San Francisco. Been back and forth. 1 carry, 5 carries, 1 carries, 5 carries. Averaging about 4 yards a carry. Not terrible. Like, he's been fine. So, Isaac Correndo, I think if anything happens to Jordan Mason, would be incredibly valuable in this offense. You could take it. You could play it safe, right? Like, you could just say, maybe I'll just spend my fab if Jordan Mason does get hurt. But this scenario with Christian McCaffrey is not great. Jordan Mason has looked incredible, but you never know. The running backs just take so much hit. And, I mean, the way they're running Jordan Mason right now, you never really know. So get Isaac Correndo. Next, we have Roman Wilson. Roman Wilson hasn't played yet, been a healthy scratch every single week, but I'm here to tell you that he is a stud. Not sure why they haven't activated him, to be honest. I'm a little confused because, he's better than Calvin Austin and Van Jefferson combined, really. But he's incredible. He is incredible. Roman Wilson is incredible. And when he sees the field, I think it's only going to be good things. So if you can get him, especially in dynasty leagues. He's available in a lot of leagues. He's going to be awesome. He is. Now, I know there's not a lot of pass volume, but, we're seeing that they're utilizing George Pickens a little bit less. Roman Wilson, I think, will be able to step into this offense and get a lot of usage, really, and be good with it. So I want Roman Wilson so bad. Next, we talked about Josh Palmer. We're still going to talk about DJ Chark as well. This is, of course, for your deeper leagues, but he is eligible to return whenever now. He's been on the PUP list. He's going to be good. I think that DJ Chark is going to be sneaky good in this Chargers offense. Not a lot of people talking about him for a decent reason, right? I mean, like, it's DJ Chark we're talking about here, but he fits well into this offense. There's no one on this offense that has the skill set he does. And honestly, I think the Chargers have kind of been missing a playmaker like him. So I think when he returns, he's going to get 3-4 targets a game, and they'll be high-value touches, whether it be deep shots or just red zone opportunities. DJ Chark is going to score some touchdowns this year, going to be viable. I want him on my team. He's available in like 98% of leagues, but I think he's a sneaky one. I think DJ Chark is a very, very sneaky one. There was a lot of hype for him at training camp. Get him on your team while you can. Next is Troy Franklin. Troy Franklin, his usage went down this week, but the last 2 weeks has combined for 9 targets. Not looking great with it yet, but brings in 1 receptions for 20 yards this week against the Raiders. Bo Nix is starting to look really good, and I'm just, again, they were teammates in college. They're teammates now. I think that that's going to trend nicely throughout the season, and at some point, Troy Franklin's going to be a flex play. I don't want to wait that long. I want to get him on my team now because I think that connection is going to be beautiful, and he does still have some good athleticism. So Troy Franklin, get him. And lastly, but not least, in this running backs, wide receivers, we're going to go with Jonathan Mingo. This we've got to kind of monitor the Xavier Legette injury, but Jonathan Mingo, 5 targets, 4 targets in the last 3 games, and that's with Legette playing. If Legette is out, we could see his targets go up just a little bit, and he could be decent. Maybe score a touchdown here or there. So Jonathan Mingo, someone we need to keep our eye out for. Get him on your team as well. Jonathan Mingo. Deontay Johnson, I think, also picked up an injury too. So just kind of just these Panthers receivers, Jatavian Sanders, I'd like to mention as well in the tight end room. It's while we're at tight end as well, Theo Johnson, worth adding. Just had a big game, has lots of athleticism. Theo Johnson, add him as well. Now, I do just really quickly want to list off some quarterbacks to be stashing in Superflex if they're available. They're probably not, but just in case. Aiden O'Connell, things are kind of getting interesting in Las Vegas. Drake May, as already mentioned. Jameis Winston, as things are getting weird with Deshaun Watson. Nick Mullins, as we're seeing just these Vikings quarterbacks. They're incredible no matter what their name is. And Sam Darnold did pick up that rib injury. Nick Mullins, worth rostering. Michael Penix, just because of course, the Achilles for Kirk Cousins. And while on the Achilles, Tyrod Taylor probably. Stetson Bennett. Stetson Bennett is an interesting one. I think he would take over for Stafford if anything happens there. Josh Dobbs, of course. I mean, we see the 49ers quarterbacks be able to succeed in that system. So if anything happens to Purdy, we could have Dobbs mania again. Sam Howell in Seattle was pretty damn good in Washington. Can truly sling the ball. I think he'd be a good fit in this offense with Ryan Grubbs. Hendon Hooker in Detroit. I think that, just the weapons in Detroit, they're good enough. If anything happens to Goff, I think Hooker would be decent. Kyle Trask, just the backup in Tampa with those weapons, should be good the way that offense is working. Drew Lock, just in case in New York. I mean, they're looking fine. This offense is looking fine. If they do move to bench Daniel Jones, which is probably not going to be the case now, but if they do, then Drew Lock. And then Bryce Young. I mean, if he was dropped prematurely, we saw him kind of step in last week a little bit. I could see them go back to Bryce Young at some point this season. Tight end stashes are just players to look out for as well if they're available. Mike Gesicki, Colby Parkinson, Jatavian Sanders, Luke Musgrave, Tyler Conklin, K. Dotton, Theo Johnson, Foster Moreau. Those tight ends need to be rostered as well. They're decent. And their matchup, in certain matchups, you're going to be able to start those guys. So get them on your team. And then, of course, Ryan Flournoy. Keep stashing him as well. I'm going to answer some questions, and then we will get out of here. I saw a couple trade questions that I want to get to. And do remember, tomorrow is our market watch. We'll be doing our top buys and sells, so that's a good place as well. Would you trade Stephon Diggs and Little for Taysom Hill and Bowers? Or maybe Tyreek Hill and Bowers? I think so. I mean, getting Bowers is pretty sweet. And if that's Tyreek Hill, I think he'll turn it around when Tua returns. And then I saw another good trade question earlier. Would you trade Garrett Wilson and Brian Robinson for Jamar Chase? Yes, I would. Get Jamar Chase at any cost. Guys, ladies, guys, gentlemen, everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. This is another fun episode of Wake and Take. Good luck on your waiver wires. Make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe. And make sure you have a good day. Peace.
From the Podfather to you, I deeply appreciate you tuning in. And many ask, what can I do? What can I do to help support the hosts, the research they do, the production costs? Go to PlayerProfiler.com, Dynasty Deluxe, World Famous Draft Kit, Rankings, DFS Dominator, and of course, Data Analysis. Subscribe to any one of those, and you support all of us and take Player Profiler to the moon.